Hello once again, Antoni here with a review of Mozart's Le Nozze di Figaro, known in English as The Marriage of Figaro, which was shown at the Staatsoper Schiller Theater, starring one of my most favorite singers, Anna Prohaska as Susanna, alongside Dorothea Röschmann, another favorite soprano, as Countess Amaviva. The conductor was Christopher Molds. The production was by Thomas Langhoff. The set design was by Herbert Kappelmüller. The costumes were by Yoshio Yabara. The lights were handled by Franz Peter David. The chorus master was Martin Wright, and the choreography was by Thorsten Händler. Now, it's no secret that this is definitely one of my most favorite Mozart operas of all time. Sure, I really love Mozart's Magic Flute, Don Giovanni, Entführung aus dem Serail, Lucio Silla, Mitridate, Idomeneo, La Clemenza di Tito, Così fan tutte. But Nozze di Figaro definitely has something special in my heart because it has a lot of well-written comedy because, let's face it, this was also based on the second part of Beaumarchais' Figaro trilogy. So, yeah, I'm sure that it has a lot of great comedy because I've never really read the play myself, but I've only watched the opera adaptations of both the first play and the second play, namely Barber of Seville and this opera. So with such great comedy, there's also such fantastic music from Mozart, including the famous overture, the one that goes Yes, that is one of the most famous overtures that I have heard in a lot of TV shows, cartoons, you name it. I've heard this overture playing, and it's just so wonderful. It's so brisk and so epic that you know that you're going to be seeing such a fantastic opera once the curtain opens. And another favorite aria from this opera definitely has to be Figaro's Non più andrai, the one that goes Non più andrai farfallone amoroso. That song is just so addicting to listen to. And it's so dry and so sarcastic that every time I listen to Non più andrai, my face just lights up. I have a huge grin on my face every time I listen to Non più andrai. It is just so sarcastic, so fun, and just so, I hate to say this, epic. But I know that I have to say this so many times because words can't really describe just how awesome this aria really is. It is so sarcastic, it's so biting, yet it's just so lovely. And another highlight of this opera also has to be the Countess's two arias, Porgi Amor and Dove Sono, the Count's aria, Hai già vinta la causa, Susanna's De vieni a non tardar, Cherubinos non so più cosa faccio, and Voi che sapete, and of course, Barbarina's little aria, L'ho perduta. Oh, and also Bartolo's La Vendetta. And actually, my favorite scene in this opera definitely has to be the moment when Figaro realizes that Bartolo and Marcellina are his parents. That scene basically makes me smile because even though it may seem funny, it's just so touching. It's both funny and touching at the same time. So definitely with this opera, there were a lot of funny and very touching moments, usually depending on the production, and at times just how the director handles these productions. But at the same time, it also has some biting messages of feminism and whose sex is right, whether it's the man's side or the woman's side. Mozart really liked to tease his viewers, and it's not just through his beautiful music, but the messages that they're implying, like infidelity, who's the better sex, and love in general. There are basically a lot of interesting themes in this opera, and quite intriguing as well. So yeah, the reason why I really, really, really love Le Nozze di Figaro is its biting humor that is so sarcastic and so, well, dry and just brimming with excitement, and its lovable characters and the situations they get themselves into, and most importantly, and most noticeably, the music. Every piece of music is extremely memorable. Now, going into the production, I thought the production was pretty good. It was quite colorful and it was brimming with life. It didn't feel dead. It didn't feel like it was just one scenery, one boring scenery. It was just so alive. And it kind of resonated with just the setting of where Marriage of Figaro was set, basically in Seville. And we do get to see that type of Spanish authenticity in some of the scenes. And the costumes were very beautiful. I especially love the Countess's first costume, where she's wearing like a fall fur coat. I thought that is just one of the most beautiful fur coats I've ever seen. So yeah, production and costumes, very beautiful, very colorful, and quite interesting as well. Now the singers. What more can I say about such fantastic singers like Kyle Kettleson, Anna Prohaska, Roman Treco, Dorothea Röschmann, Katarina Kamiloha, and many others? Well, they were all fantastic. So let's start with Figaro, sung by the fantastic Kyle Kettleson, who I heard a lot of excerpts of him on YouTube, basically as Leporello and as Camillo. Now, his voice was absolutely brimming with masculinity, with such virility and such excitement. And when it comes to him as a comic actor, he doesn't ham it up. He doesn't go for easy laughs. He goes for witty humor and sardonic humor as well. So he goes for wit and sarcasm and dry humor as well. So yeah, his Figaro is definitely one of the most beautiful portrayals I've ever heard, and he's also performed this role in many other opera houses. And boy, was this experience of watching Mr. Kettleson as Figaro worthwhile. He was in great vocal shape. I especially loved his two arias, Non più andrai and Aprito un po' quegli occhi. I thought those two were just beautifully sung with such masculinity, such virility, such excitement that just caught me on the edge of my seats. Now, my favorite singer, well, one of my favorite sopranos of all time, Anna Prohaska as Susanna. What more can I say about her? She's a fantastic singer. She is a fantastic light lyric soprano. And her acting is really good as well. She was able to play Susanna's kittenish and feisty nature, not to mention very youthful nature as well. She was so wonderful, both vocally and dramatically, that I just simply couldn't take my eyes off of her. She played Susanna's feistiness and mischief to a T, and her voice was soaringly beautiful. Dorothea Röschmann as the Countess. Now, this was a soprano that I also admire so much. Heck, I even have her Pamina on DVD. And she's also quite an interesting singer as well, because during the 90s and early 2000s, she specialized in a lot of light lyric soprano roles like Servilia, Susanna, Enchen, Almirena, and Pamina, before she started to venture into more full lyric soprano roles like Vitellia, Donna Elvira, Elsa, who that I sadly didn't see because she performed Elsa in 2009 at the Staatsoper Show Theater. I kind of regret not seeing that Elsa. I'm sure that her Elsa was just beautiful. She also performed Eva from Meistersinger, and nowadays she performs the Marschallin. And from what I've read in Opera Base, she's going to be performing Florinda from Fierabras. And she's also performed the role of Marenka from The Barter Bride. Her voice was slightly darker from how I remembered it to be because I've heard some of her recordings as Pamina and one of her first countesses in Salzburg. And her voice was a lot lighter and a lot more explosive on the top. That's not to say that she still doesn't have those top notes. That's not to say that she doesn't have those top notes. She still has them. They're all ringing and all beautiful. Yet I seem to notice that the timbre of her voice has gradually darkened, but I think it's also because of the repertoire that she's finding herself singing nowadays. Nowadays she's singing a lot of full lyric and jugendlich dramatische soprano type of roles like Elsa von Brabant, Eva, the Marschallin, Donna Elvira, Marenka, Eva Pogna, you name it, she's singing them now. And it's quite interesting. But still, she gives such a fantastic performance as the Countess. She's able to portray all of that suffering and all of that pain that the Countess feels. And not to mention, not like I said, her voice was absolutely beautiful. Sure, it's darkened, but that doesn't mean it's not that beautiful. It's so beautiful and so poignant and just so brimming with emotion. It's no wonder why she's also very well known for her Lieder concerts as well. She is that beautiful of a performer. And playing her husband was Roman Trekel. His voice, I have to say, was absolutely powerful, brimming with masculinity. And his acting could have been better, but it's still a good portrayal of the Count. But more than anything, it's his voice that really screams excitement and screams some hints of manliness as well, but also elegance. I thought his voice was absolutely elegant, virile, and very exciting. Now, Cherubino was sung by Ana Bonita-Tibus. Now, sure, I do prefer a light lyric soprano singing Cherubino because, let's face it, Cherubino is a boy in his early teens, or late tweens. But all tastes aside, I definitely felt that Miss Bonita-Tibus was able to give such an endearing portrayal of Cherubino. She was able to play all of his mischievous nature and all of his boyish charms very well. Not to mention, her voice was absolutely beautiful. It was very homogeneous throughout all the registers, and her voix que sapete was also sung interestingly with a lot of ornamentations, especially near the end of the aria. She basically gives such a wonderful portrayal of Cherubino's boyish nature. So yeah, she was absolutely fantastic as Cherubino. And even though I do prefer a light lyric soprano or even a full lyric soprano singing Cherubino, my tastes can be really pushed aside with such a fantastic singer like Miss Ana Bonita-Tibus. In the role of Marcellina, we have Katharina Kameloche, who is very well known for singing a lot of lyric mezzo roles, but nowadays has sung some roles in the dramatic mezzo repertoire, albeit going back and forth with some of the roles in the lyric mezzo repertoire. I thought she was absolutely beautiful as a singer. And sure, she may not look like a crotchety old woman, but she's still that wonderful of an interpreter. Especially her duet with Anna Prohaska. I thought it was just masterfully sung. And heck, this is another highlight from this opera. The catty duet between Marcellina and Susanna Viaresti Servita. I thought with the right singers, with the right mezzo, and some occasion soprano. And the right soprano, this duet can easily steal the show in an instant. And with Kamalocha and Prohaska, I thought they did beautifully. Now, with Kamalocha as Machalina, I thought she was absolutely beautiful in tone and in presence. She was able to keep those comedic antics to a minimum, and I thought it's just masterfully done. And her voice, it seems as though that she could venture into a lot more dramatic mezzo roles, like, let's say, Eboli and Amneris. It definitely has that potential to go through more dramatic mezzo roles. But with her as Marcellina, I thought she was a real treat. Playing her partner, who is actually her husband, Don Bartolo, is Maurizio Muraro. His voice was stentorian, powerful. It was quite booming and very, very, very virile. And his interpretation of Bartolo was absolutely masterful. Sure, this gentleman has performed in a lot of basso buffo roles in the past, and he's also made some successful attempts in the basso nobile repertoire. Here I thought he was a real treat, both vocally and dramatically, as Don Bartolo. In the role of Don Basilio, we have Florian Hoffman, who was such a wonderful singer. He had such a light, lyric tenor voice that was just so adorable and just so lovely to listen to. And his stage presence was quite commanding as well, especially in the end of the opera. I thought he was at his most commanding, especially seeing how the couples, Count Almaviva, Countess Almaviva, Figaro, Susanna, Cherubino, Barbarina, Bartolo and Marcellina, and not the not couples, basically, Curzio and Antonio go their own separate ways. I thought he was able to steal the show, especially when he saw that little sketch of how this is going to end. I thought his stage presence and singing were very well done. Now, in the role of Don Curzio, we have veteran character tenor Peta Maus. I thought he was absolutely great. Sure, his voice is almost in tatters, but his acting abilities more than make up for that. I thought he gave such a wonderful interpretation of the lawyer, even though it's such a very thankless and small role. But still, he was able to pull it off very well. Then we have Antonio, who was sung by Olaf Behr. Now, I was completely surprised that that was Olaf Behr singing Antonio. Sure, I've seen his name on the posters and even on this program. Because, let's face it, Olaf Behr was a baritone who was very well known for singing a lot of lyric baritone roles in the 80s and the 90s, like Papageno, Guglielmo, Count Almaviva, and he also sang Harlequin, which I also have on CD from Ariadne auf Naxos. And seeing him as Antonio, he was almost unrecognizable because this was the same man who's performed in a lot of lyric baritone roles in the past. And here he is in such a small yet very entertaining role. And I thought he did a magnificent job. Sure, his voice does sound aged, but I thought it was really appropriate for Antonio. So he was absolutely a fantastic interpreter. And then we have Barbarina, who was sung by Sonia Grane. Her voice was just so lovely. It was a silvery and very sweet voice, and she was at her sweetest when she sung L'ho perduta. I thought she was just wonderful. And I really hope to see more of her because she's still so young. And I really hope to see how her career will end up going. I think she's very destined for singing a lot of light lyric and coloratura roles. So I can't really wait to see what she's going to do next. In the very small roles of the two maidens, we have Minju von Blomberg and Constanze Löwe. I thought their little duet was just beautifully sung. And the conducting by Sir Christopher Molds, or Maestro Christopher Molds, was absolutely masterful. It was brisk. It was exciting. Sure, there are moments where it could have been slower, but overall, it's just my tastes. It was still masterfully conducted. It didn't feel too slow nor too fast. Sure, it could have gone a little bit on the slower side in some of the arias and some of the scenes, but even then, it's still that exciting. His conducting of the orchestra was still that exciting, and the chorus was equally well sung as well. So overall, what more can I say about this production of Marriage of Figaro? With such stellar singing, great conducting, a great production, and an overall great fun time with the comedy and the music, it's no doubt why it's really one of my favorite operas that the great Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart has ever performed or has ever composed. So this was absolutely fantastic. And I think it's still running, so if you haven't seen it yet, go check it out. You won't be disappointed because there are a lot of stellar performances everywhere. From Anna Prohaska as Susanna to Kyle Kettleson as Figaro. You will not be disappointed at just how fantastic these singers are. Well, that's all for now. Be sure to tune into my next review, which is tomorrow, where I'll be reviewing Book Thief. Now, this is a movie that I've heard a lot of great things about, and I've also seen the trailer, and it does look like it's a very promising film. So until then, this is Antoni signing off and wishing you all a good night, and I hope you had a happy Sunday.